Very good evening. You're watching Business Prime Time on NDTV Profit. I'm Shivani Muthana. Straight to our big business story this evening. And the question, of course, is whether India is losing its investment appeal. Certainly, a whole host of corporates are coming back over the past 1 week and reiterating their concern, reiterating their statements. Let's, in fact, bring you the key statements that have come in from top corporate voices across the country over the last week. Here's what they had to say. They've said that decision-making has slowed down significantly in India. You've also got infrastructure that is one of the big impediments to growth. So that's, of course, another point that has been brought up. They've said that the policy paralysis perception is really leading to a loss of investor confidence. That's another cause of worry as well. And an emerging market like India should essentially have the potential to grow much more. These comments, of course, coming in from the likes of Sunil Mittal, LN Mittal, as well as Adi Godrej. They've said that policy paralysis is now forcing corporates to look at other markets for investments and better returns. You also have uncertainty on fuel supply, land, as well as environmental clearances. We also did have Moody's Analytics saying that the current UPA government, in fact, is the biggest drag on the economy. So is India no longer a diamond in the rough? And is corporate India itself being driven out? Here's a report.
When you have environment of hope,
yes,
as opposed to environment of, I wouldn't say despair, but not so much of great hope, you try to conserve cash. You start retreating back.
Bharti Chief Sunil Mittal's harsh assessment of India's worsening investment climate that was echoed by steel baron LN Mittal over the weekend, as he publicly stated that India has gone down in his list of priority countries to invest. As businessmen, both global and domestic, fight strong anti-investment headwinds ranging from retrograde policy rollbacks, lack of land and environmental clearances, continuing fuel shortages, retrospective tax amendments and a protracted period of high interest rates, investments have virtually hit a wall. Gross fixed capital formation, an indicator of investment activity, was negative in the second and third quarters of FY12, with the second quarter print being the worst on record since financial year 2005. Manufacturing projects worth over 75,000 crore rupees were stalled after March 2012, a surge of 91%, the highest ever recorded in the industry. The ratio of stalled projects as a percentage of total projects under implementation has climbed to 10%, again the highest ever recorded. But what's a matter of bigger concern is the dip in private sector projects that fell 41% over the March 2011 quarter. Clearly, as a paralysis in decision-making wanes investor confidence, those having entered India are threatening to pull the plug.
The problem with the recommendation now is that what they are not fixing is this problem.
While others from India Inc., including the Tatas, the Ruiyas, Ambanis, the Sahara Group, as well as FMCG majors like Marico and Godrej, are looking at more lucrative destinations overseas to drive growth. But while sentiment is despondent, some are still hopeful that growth can be achieved by expediting the reform agenda.
We need to revive growth through reform and governance. I think the perception is worse than the reality. So we have to improve the reality through reforms and governance.
With ratings agencies, the government's own advisors, and now even the bigwigs of corporate India unable to keep mum anymore, will the government finally act is the big question. In Mumbai, Nikhil Namdar, NDTV Profit.
Well, keeping it with our big story on whether India is losing its appeal as an investment destination, the steel sector is one sector that serves as a backbone of infrastructure growth in any country. But India is clearly lacking on that front as well. And that's mainly due to the slow clearance process. In fact, we also have two of the world's biggest steel makers, ArcelorMittal as well as POSCO, that are still struggling to set pace here in India. And this has also driven the man of steel himself, LN Mittal, to come out publicly and say that India has in fact lost priority as an investment destination. Rajkumar Sahu reports.
The man of steel, it appears, has found India just too little hard to crack. Right from the time Lakshmi Mittal wanted to expand the biggest steel company ArcelorMittal to India, the going has not been easy. There has been huge resistance, not just from the people but also from the policy makers.
Surely things are moving slow, right. There is no doubt. Right. and process approvals are taking time.
ArcelorMittal produces about 120 million tons of steel, nearly 10% of world's steelmaking capacity. ArcelorMittal proposed to set up 2 steel plants with 12 million tons each in Orissa and Jharkhand, hoping to spread its wings. But Mittal was forced to cut down the ticket size of projects to 6 million tons each. Mittal appears to have run out of patience.
I tell my guys that don't complain the policies, try to adapt to work within the policy. We don't say that it is a paralysis or it is a slowdown. We try to adapt to the local policy.
Another top steel maker, POSCO, is moving at a snail's pace. Its proposed $12 billion investment in Orissa is a story of controversy and red tape. 8 years after the announcement, the plant is still to see the light of the day. Industrialists blame it to two-tier policy decision of state and center.
Even in the case of ArcelorMittal or POSCO, I think the central government has been giving all the encouragement, and is not any decision making at the central government level that has been held up. So also it is very challenging at the local level.
Call it a policy paralysis or slow decision making, or even the limitation of a coalition government. But the end result of all this is the economic growth of the country is slowing down. And if the policymakers want the country to grow at a 7 to 8% rate in the 12th five-year plan, then all this has to change, and change very soon. In New Delhi, Rajkumar Sahu, NDTV.
Well, the lack of policy and reform agenda may be driving corporate India